Welcome to the Impact Maker's Journey from Passion to Profits, the podcast showcasing heart-centered coaches, experts, and energy healers who are on a mission to change lives and create meaningful success doing what they love. I'm your host, Wendy Vaughn, business success coach and founder of Impact Maker Coaching. And I've got to be honest, the path from passion to profits is rarely easy, but it's always filled with growth, clarity, and surprising rewards. Now, each week I sit down with inspiring impact makers who have turned their knowledge and wisdom into thriving businesses that are making a meaningful difference for others. I will explore their personal and professional journeys, how they found their calling, and how they continue to stay aligned with their passion along the way. So if you're here to expand your vision about what's possible for yourself, you're in the right place. So join me as we discover the positive ripple effects created by today's guest. All right. Well, welcome. I have as my guest today, Dr. LaShandra Batiste-Manary. Now, Dr. LaShandra is a relationship and life empowerment coach, and she supports those ambitious women to rediscover their power and create lives and relationships that truly fulfill them. So welcome, Dr. LaShandra. I am so excited to have you as my guest today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and I really am looking forward to discovering just more about you, the work you're doing, and your journey as an entrepreneur. Because, well, quite frankly, everyone's entrepreneurial journey is unique. We all kind of have our own paths, so we wander and hopefully go through the right doors at the right time. But sometimes it gets a little confusing or messy, or it's never that predictable of a journey. And it typically includes lots of opportunities, as I call it, with air quotes, for personal growth, because
Yes.
personal growth is kind of part of it.
I agree.
Yeah. So let me ask you: do you feel like you're the same person today as you were when you started your journey to become a coach?
Not at all. To be honest, when I think about becoming a coach, it was not even something I knew about or something I thought I was going to do. I actually went to school to become a marriage and family therapist and ended up doing a bunch of hours there. But at that point in my life, I was working at a school, California State University, Northridge. And around that time, they were moving people around into different positions, and a position had opened up to be a mentoring coordinator. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna graduate soon. I have this counseling degree. Let me see if I can secure a job because I just don't know what the job market's gonna look like.
Right.
And realistically, yeah, things shifted because in order to become a licensed marriage and family therapist, you need to do clinical hours. You need 3,000 hours. Technically, I was working in a school, but I wasn't working in the counseling department. I was working with student athletes because I was a previous student athlete.
Oh,
And so it was more academic counseling work. And so some of my counseling work would come into place when I worked with students. They would talk about relationships or stress or anxiety or time management. Like some of those
oh
skills
yeah.
I had learned about, I had known like I could use these still to work with my students. So not
Mm-hmm.
at all did this come about. I actually learned about coaching because one of my colleagues and us were just looking and we found out about an academic life coach. And I was like, okay, academic life coach, what is this? But I figured my job
Sounds
could
a bit
pay for it.
interesting, right?
I was like, it sounds interesting. It's unique. My job, was like paying for professional development. I was like, okay, if I can get
Exactly.
away, get away for
Learn
them
as
to
you
pay
go,
for
get
it.
paid.
I was like, this could be amazing. And I had realized that no matter what type of coach you are, they teach you the basic coaching skills. So whether I was going to be an academic life coach or just, any other sort of coach, they teach you the basics on how to coach people, what that looked like. And I knew I loved therapy and counseling and that sort of thing. But I also knew I was one of those people that really want to help people get results and get, kind of move their life forward. And
Yeah,
coaching was
yeah,
very different. Instead of working on the past, it really worked on the present and the here and now, kind of moving your life forward. So I was like,
yeah.
hmm, this is interesting. So it just kind of unfolded and
Naturally. I
um
love that. Yeah. And it
it
was
was great.
early in your career
Yeah.
too. It wasn't like for so many of us, we go down a a path that we think is it, we feel like maybe it's not it, but we keep going, keep going, keep going. And
Yeah.
like, I'm out of here, So I love the fact that early in your career, the doors started opening. I mean, it was before your career that, things started kind of naturally unfolding. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
But I
love that.
will say this, it was so from academic life coaching, I knew for me, even though I worked in an academic setting, a lot of my students would talk to me about relationship stuff, and my heart would I'm like, "Ooh, I love this relationship stuff." Like, I get it, the
Mhm.
academic stuff works, but I also realize when you're working with people in general, if there's a certain part of their life that is struggling, that also can impact other areas because, we're humans, we are
Oh
holistic,
yeah, we can't just like
we
compartmentalize.
yeah, you don't really compartmentalize. So I realized was as I was working with students that were struggling in school, they were probably struggling in school because of finances or insecurity or toxic relationships or being parents or, struggling with the pressures of being this D1 student athlete. And so I was like, okay,
Hmm.
there's something here. So I feel like this degree that I got in counseling is really going to work with me, but also how do I help them in school? Because that's the role that I have. But I also felt like it was a balance of like working with their mental health and then also working with their academics and then also
Right,
making
like
sure they were
time
knowledgeable.
management. Yeah,
Yeah, all of it.
productivity. It's like all of this kind of like, wow.
Yeah. So realistically, although I started as an academic life coach, I started thinking like, huh, well, what is this coaching thing and what does this look like? So I started researching and looking more into it. And I was like, oh, I love like business and entrepreneurship. And I was like, oh, maybe I could help people that want to do entrepreneurship and I can be a
Mm.
leadership coach. And, like my name switched
So
so much. So I think coaching was not very clear in what type of
right,
coach. Yeah. But
coaching,
path-wise
but
coaching was
where do
exciting.
we take
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, I wasn't sure where I was going to take the coaching, but I knew coaching seemed like a really good path for me to go. I just wasn't
Hmm.
sure what type of clients and what my niche was going to be. And I
Yeah.
get very excited still. So I'm still a little broad, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, I feel very excited and very driven and very heart motivated by the work that I'm doing now.
Yeah, no, and it is such a big, topic. Like you said, there are so
Mhm.
many different aspects, and to specialize on one almost seems like, yeah, but I, all of this comes together. So if I just do relationship, it's also about life. And then if I just do life,
Mhm.
it's also about relationship. And it all seems to weave in together. And you know, what I'm sensing is that just that leaning into helping people to kind of cut through the chaos and
Mhm.
find that path of fulfillment is really,
Yeah.
the common thread, regardless of
Mhm.
what the focus is. So yeah, I love that. And,
Mhm.
in then transitioning out of that discovery of, okay, so where do, and within this coaching umbrella, do I focus?
Mhm.
Did you have any sort of specific like business training as well? Or how did you go about building a business? Was it just like, well, we'll just see? Or did you have a specific plan?
Had no plan. It didn't even know the plan. I'm still trying to figure out the bigger plan. But I think for me, I understood some logistics of business, like, hey, there's marketing, there's social media, there's legally turning your business into like a corporation or something like that.
Yeah.
And then there's like, lawyers and paperwork and kind of creating documents and, doing the work that you're doing. But I think a lot of it was like, I would watch YouTube and get excited, like, oh, there's, people that are doing what I'm doing, but they're ahead of the game. And I love the work that they're doing. So just started following people that were doing some of the coaching I was starting to do, or just listening to people who really had some sort of a niche that I liked and kind of seeing their story and how they kind of got to where they got to, like what sort of degrees did they have, like what was their path to getting started.
Hmm.
I would say I did kind of know a little bit about marketing because I was like looking into it a little bit because I was going to do like real estate at some point in time because I was like, oh, real estate's good. So I kind of learned about like marketing and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
through the same company that I got my academic life coaching certification, I actually found out they had like this business life coaching course. So like they taught you the business side of how to run your coaching business and kind of getting it off the floor and what you needed to do and how to get clients and how to kind of get things off the floor. So I think that was a good foundation to figure out,
Mhm.
what do I do? What's the next steps?
Yeah,
How do I really
right.
kind of get this off the floor
It's-
going? But it can be very overwhelming because when you think about business, there's so many different strategies. Like people can tell you if you want to get clients, create an opt-in, go, on
Right.
Facebook
There
groups,
are a
create a
million and
profile.
one different
There's
strategies.
yes, there's a million and one different strategies. So it's just like, well, what works for you? And I think sometimes like I'm a very big vision person, or I like to get all the information. So I would sit there and consume information and learn these things. And I was teaching myself how to build a website on wordpress.org. And now I'm a
Right.
coder. And it's like, girl, I'm trying to be the jack of all trades. And when you're, doing a business, you have to wear multiple
And
hats.
Dr. LaShandra, somehow along the way here, you also got married and had kids too, right?
Yes, all of the above.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that adds to that, like how much
Yeah.
can I juggle? So yeah, it
Yeah. And
can
so
be
that's
really
when it got hard, I
overwhelming.
think, to throw back on that, in 2019, yeah, I got married, and the guy I married, he had two kids. So I was getting ready to become
Uh,
a bonus mom and all that stuff. So at that same time, luckily we had got married when we got married because it was 2019. The next year would have been COVID and it wouldn't have happened. So I was like, okay, let's do it. But yeah,
right.
during that time, I'm like, okay, like I'm navigating this job. I'm trying to figure out how to do this thing. Now, the marriage part wasn't too tricky because I already felt like we were already kind of playing house. So it kind of worked, but I felt like to really commit to a business, that's almost another baby that you're trying to commit to. And I'm trying
Yeah,
to
that's a
learn
great
these things.
analogy.
And, I have
Hmm.
a 9 to 5, and he's looking like, girl, you're on this computer 24/7. And I'm like, well, because I'm going to create this multi-million dollar business. So I think for me, it was this constant grind of trying to figure it out and trying to try
Yeah.
different strategies. So like
Yeah,
you
it can
said,
be
there's
exhausting.
a lot. Yeah, burnout is real. So I was trying to be mindful of like, well, what gets me flowing and what makes the most sense. And for me, I almost started getting more excited about like my entrepreneurship journey than my 9 to 5, but I also was very realistic. Like, girl, your 9 to 5 ain't really where you need it to be yet. So you have to balance out this situation of being a good employer, but then also after work, having enough motivation to cook, to clean, to take care of the house, to do all
Yeah,
those things. And then to still have the business going and get
right.
clients, which
Yep.
is a whole
It's a
nother
lot.
area.
Yeah, it's a lot, definitely. It is
Yes,
definitely a lot because we're not really born with those skills. It's like, oh, or
definitely.
last I checked, it's not on Amazon, business in a box,
Yeah, not at all. Right? Where is that? I'm like, sign
Where is
me up
that?
for
Yeah,
business in a
prime
box. Who's
delivery,
doing
just
it?
give
Yeah.
me a business in a box and let me, step into it and
Let's
we're going.
simplify. Yeah, no, I
So,
love that. Very true.
yeah.
Not there.
Well, it is definitely it's a challenging journey to go from that passion to profits on that path that really works for you. So now
Yeah.
so let's switch gears a little bit though and talk about these women that you serve. Because I know
Mhm.
that your specialty is working with those women who are ambitious, right? They really want more for themselves. They want more
Mhm.
success, more romance, more love, more, a better life. So
Yeah.
what curiously is going on for them that is kind of a common myth or misbelief that they have that just keeps them in this level of maybe struggle or frustration or whatever that they think that's just the way it is there something that they're buying into that that's not the way it needs to be.
Mhm. Yeah, I think for me, it's just this mindset of like, you have to do it all. And like, you can't, you have to do it all, but all areas can't work out for you. And there's not a way to really create that balance. And you're not really understanding that with doing it all comes burnout. So you also have to recognize there's time for you to take a break and recognize what's the most important thing. So for me, like I've even experienced that myself when it's like, oh my God, I'm trying to do it all. Like you got to be a mom, you got to be a wife, you're trying to be successful because you're very driven. So if there's, a certificate or a degree, you're like going after it and you're trying to
Right.
be like a perfectionist. So everything has
Yeah.
to be perfect for your business, but then you get stuck. So I think for these women, it's just being like, okay, like you have to do it all and it has to come together perfectly. And, burnout's not real and it's not going to happen. Like you just got to go, go, go and grind. And for
Right.
me, it's like sometimes you have to give yourself space to say, although you want to have it all, which I believe women could have it all. Like the
Yeah.
life you want, you could have it all. But I also believe it's not about balance. Like there's this phrase people talk about work-life balance. And I feel like balance isn't really key because sometimes you can't really get 50% here, 50% here, or,
Hmm.
where the pieces are equally balanced. For me, I'm like, it might be harmony because there's some days when I'm like, I'm in mom mode and I haven't done
Right.
anything business wise and I feel guilty, like, man, like I'm not really working on that, or my business is, falling to the
Yeah.
floor. Or there's sometimes when I'm grinding so hard, I'm in business mode. So for me, it's more like work life harmony. So if you
Harmony.
want to have it all, how do you find a way for the
Kind
pieces
of
to
the,
work together based on what you need and not having this balance for you where it's like every single part of
Mhm.
my life has to get 10%? Because sometimes one part might need 90%, or the kids might need you, the husband might need you, or maybe you're trying to find a man because you're still, very successful in your career and you're trying to shift. So something has to get the back burner in order for you to create the holistic life you want that makes you happy. So I
Yeah.
think that's a big thing. And then recognizing that the more you go, 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 and you don't allow yourself to take a break or to just be human, to be, okay with taking a pause, burnout can happen, and burnout is real. And when
Yeah.
you experience burnout, it really takes a toll on the momentum you were creating because now you're doing nothing because you're just like, I'm exhausted, I'm burnt out, I don't even want to go to work. Like
Right.
you're messing up that flow. So there has to be a way for you to see the life you want, figure out what it's going to take to have that, and then be okay with just, some days you only get to do one or two things, and sometimes that's enough instead of having to do
So
10 things and feeling
more
accomplished within
compassion.
yourself.
Yeah, just having
Yeah, yeah,
compassion for yourself. So
exactly.
I think I know the answer to this in terms of, that level of burnout is maybe that wall or that barrier. I'm just, trying to understand these ambitious women. They're driven. Like you said, they want
Yeah.
to do it all, they want to do it perfectly. It feels like it's never enough, right? It's just
Hmm.
never enough. I got to do 10x more,
Hmm.
110%.
Hmm.
And it leads to that just lack of fulfillment and feeling like
Yeah.
just exhausted all the time. So what is that kind of tipping point or line in the sand that they draw that finally has them realizing, you know what, this just isn't working. This can't be it. Is there something
Yeah.
where they just like realize that maybe Dr. LaShandra is right. Maybe I need to rethink this and get her help to figure this out.
Yeah, I think it's at the point where, like you said, you're going really hard, you're going in circles. You feel like you're almost like running around with a chicken with your head cut off, and you're not fulfilled in these areas of your life. You feel
That
like you're doing these things, and yet at
empty.
the end of the day, that fulfillment isn't there. So it's like, okay,
Mhm.
what are you doing that maybe isn't moving the needle in your life? Whether sometimes
Right.
it's career, like you felt like because you have this degree or you've climbed up the ladder, you got to keep going at it in order to get at the highest level. But it's like, are you really fulfilled in the work that you're doing? And if you're not, it doesn't
Right.
matter how high up the ladder you're going to climb, you're never going to be happy because it's not the type of work that makes your heart flutter. And
Mhm.
so for me, I had to even be like, okay, like I'll go back. Initially, when I started college, I was going to major in biology because why not? It paid good, it made sense. Science is always going to be here. And I had to, one, I failed this class, organic chemistry, first class of my life, last class of my life. I ever failed and was like, this isn't for me. But I already knew I loved helping people, but a degree in psychology is not going to pay the bills. And I hear a lot of people say that, like, this type of work that I love to do or that gets me excited is not going to pay the bills or I can't do it. And so
Mhm.
people start almost getting in this box of what they feel like they have to do, who they have to be,
Right.
how they have to show up, how they have to be perfect, how they have to be, on 100% all the time. And it's like that is not the case. And I feel like people recognize it's happening, but they almost feel like, well, I've been doing this, so I got to keep doing this because
Yeah.
what else is there?
What if I stop doing this? Then, then
Yeah.
I
What is
fail.
there? Yeah. And
Right.
it's like there's so
Exactly.
much life to live. There's so many opportunities. There's so many different degrees. There's so many different things that you can do that give you that fulfillment. And I feel like sometimes people don't give themselves that permission to say, I don't think I like this. I think I'm ready for a change
Mhm.
because
No,
change is
there's
hard.
change is
Yeah.
hard. Yeah. And it
Change is
comes down
very
to
hard.
here, right? What happens then
Hmm.
if I don't do this? at
Yeah.
100%, because so far it's not really working. So if I stop, then, it's really going to get bad. So, well, so
Yeah.
curiously, what happens then for these women after they do say yes to working with you, and you get to serve and support and empower them through, the transformation. So after working with you, share with us what their life can be like.
Yeah. So for me, when I work with very ambitious women, one, I like to really tap into like, well, why are you doing what you're doing? What is the ultimate goal? Like, what is the life you really want to have? And is what you're doing going to get you the life you want to have? And I think just sometimes asking them that question and really allowing them to really dig
Yeah,
deep into
like,
what does that
never
future
thought
vision
about
look like?
that.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like, well, if I want this life where I'm able to spend time with the kids and be at their games, or I'm able to travel, or I'm able to just have peace and not be overwhelmed or be drained, it's like, well, the life I'm living right now isn't really getting me there. So when I try to assess where they're trying to go, not where they're at right now, and
Mm-hmm.
not preparing them
Yeah,
for like the moment they're in, but preparing them for where do you want to get to in life? And
right.
if that's where you're trying to get to, what needs to shift in order for you to make those baby steps to getting there? And it's not about creating this huge power plan, but it's like the sooner you take those baby steps, the sooner you're going to get closer to getting there. And also that guilt. I know as women, there's a lot of guilt of like, oh, I can, or I need to be available, for the kids, or I need to, have
Yeah.
this career, or I'm, the breadwinner sometimes in the family, that it's like, okay, at the end of the day, you are, but how can you still sustain the lifestyle you're trying to sustain while also moving towards the life you actually really want? Because it sounds like what you're doing now is just you're just kind of surviving. You're not really thriving. You're not where you want to be in life. And so really getting down to the bottom of what that looks like and why. Why do they want the life that they want? And if they were to get it, how would things change? And so when working with these women, I think ultimately the biggest thing is just recognizing that just because you've been doing something for this long doesn't mean you have to continue to do it. And just because it's been working for you doesn't mean it's the only thing that's going to work for you. I think sometimes we think, oh my God, I'm so good at this, so I should continue to do it. And it's like,
Right.
if you're really that ambitious as women, it's like you're probably going to be good at a lot of things. Like you could probably be the jack of all trades and you're going to figure out a way to be successful, to find solutions, to figure out how to do something. It's like the success isn't the problem because you're always going to be really good at what you do. And there's probably multiple things that you're good at that you can continue to be good at, or other skills you can learn. But it's like, is
Yeah.
that really what you want, or are you doing it just because you're good
Right.
at it and you feel like this
That's
this
a
is it
tough
for you?
one to just really
Yeah.
sit with and understand there's a separation between what I'm good at, and that feels good because I'm good at it, but
Mhm.
it's not really what I want to do. And
Mhm.
so just that space that you, like you said, to just reflect on that and really reconnect with what is it that brings you that sense of happiness and fulfillment, because usually it's not necessarily, well, I shouldn't say usually, but oftentimes it's not the thing that they've been doing that they're good at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So what
And
would
I
you
find
say?
that,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, I find that for women, because I also love the relationship side of thing, when I work with women in a relationship, sometimes oftentimes I'll say, if their career or what they're doing isn't giving them purpose or driving them or making them excited, and then they're in a toxic relationship that also isn't making them excited, they're really unhappy. So I also feel like in order for you to have a healthy, happy relationship, you almost have to have, a good, stable, stability situation for yourself, or try to get to that point of being like, okay, if my relationship's a little toxic or me and my partner are having challenges, then how do I find a way to, one, focus on me, which is what I do a lot when I work with my female clients that are in relationships that are not working. We go, well, how can you focus on you right now and just create happiness? Because 9 times out of 10, they're like, I'm so unhappy in my life. So it's like, one, let's just create one piece of happiness, even if that's
Yeah.
just in your career, because that one piece of happiness is going to give you something positive to hold on to when you're having those really, really rough days. And instead of
Mm-hmm.
it seeming like nothing is working for you or like life is falling apart, you have something positive and the light at the end of the tunnel to hold on to. So
Yeah.
that's one thing I focus on. And then also I focus on like, what is your journey? Oftentimes we point to our partner if we're in a relationship and we go, they're not doing this, they're not doing this. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, how do you lead with love and not anger? What needs to
Yeah.
shift for you to be in a better place for this relationship to work if you really want it to? And I always ask,
Mhm.
is this a relationship you really want to work if we're working within in your relationship? And what do you think needs to happen in order for you to get that? And sometimes it's like, well, my partner
Yeah,
isn't
it's
doing this or
easier. Yeah,
isn't
yeah,
making,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. And I'm like, probably your partner really is doing those things. Let's not discredit it because believe me, I understand it. But it's like sometimes if you just shift, it's like something I learned when I went to school. It's called first order change, second order change. If you shift something you're doing, things automatically shift. If you all of a sudden stop doing the dishes, you're not doing the dishes anymore. All of a sudden, those dishes are going to be left in the sink, or somebody else is going to step up and go, oh my God, I'm tired of the dishes being dirty. And they're going to do it. Or the person, your significant other might get to the dishes, but it might be in their time. But sometimes you got to just let things be and not be so like, sometimes as people, type A, we're like very micromanaging and things
Exactly.
need to
That's why I
happen
say
right
goes
now.
with that ambitious women kind of,
Yes. Yes, it needs to
processing.
happen right now. The dishes need to
Boom,
get
boom,
done.
boom,
The food
boom.
needs to get done. Yeah, so it's like, okay, give yourself if it's not done right now, what happens? If you took yourself out of the equation or you took a step back a little bit, what would then shift a little bit for you to create one more space for yourself, more peace for yourself, and
Hmm.
hopefully people will step up, or you tell people, hey,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I can't serve in this capacity. I need a little bit of a break and let's
Yeah.
reevaluate. So
Just
really
stepping out
shifting,
of that. Hmm.
yeah, stepping
Yeah.
out of that, stepping out of their patterns that, we get into these habits that are not self-serving. They're just
Yeah.
really toxic. And we just sometimes don't even recognize that we
Just
sometimes cause these. Well, most of the
keep
times it's
going.
us because yeah, we just get comfortable like, oh, this is our role and we've been doing it. So this is how it's going to be because this is our
Hmm.
dynamic or this is my life dynamic, our family dynamic. This is how I've been moving, operating. And it's like, okay, something has to shift
Yeah.
if you
Right.
want a different life. If you
On
don't,
a different
cool.
life.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
You hit that wall, that barrier that's like enough is enough, then
Yeah.
something starts shifting. And I love what you said about
Yeah.
we're not going to fix everything instantly.
Yeah.
That would really create a lot of chaos, right? It's just
Hmm.
one stepping stone at a time. First, get clarity on the vision of what you want,
Yeah.
where are we headed? What do you ultimately want? And
Yeah.
then kind of reverse engineer it, if you will, and look at the tiny steps that can be taken. So yeah, I love that. So
Yeah.
what would you say to the woman who still loves her partner, right? But she feels invisible, maybe unsupported or kind of disconnected in her own relationship?
Hmm. That's a good one. I think I would say loving someone doesn't mean that you have to lose yourself in the process. I feel that oftentimes when I work with women, I found a lot of them say like I lost myself or I don't do the things I used to love anymore or I don't even know the person I'm becoming. And so I know it can be confusing if you're connected to your partner or you really love your relationship. But if you're feeling unseen, if you're feeling unsupported, if you're emotionally, alone and you're not getting that emotional support from your partner, sometimes you might be asking yourself, like, am I expecting too much? Is it me? And sometimes we question ourselves when our relationship is not going well because we think
Yeah.
we're the problem only, or, sometimes our partner is only the problem. But it's like, okay, it's a balance between both of you guys. How do you guys kind of navigate this together? But with you making these shifts, your relationship can change. So I think reminding yourself as a woman that, you're not asking for too much if you're feeling challenged in your relationship or you're not being supported or your needs are not getting met, and you deserve to feel emotionally safe, valued, and supported in your relationship. And then even more, if you're trying to be in a healthy, happy relationship, communication is key. You don't always have to be the strong one. That's what we talk about often is, as the woman, you're the strong one. You don't cry, you take care of everything. But it's like you shouldn't always have to feel like you have to be the strong one, and you don't want to inconvenience anybody. And so wanting that deeper connection, doesn't mean you have to leave, but it just means something has to shift in order for you to create the relationship you desire. And so that's actually why I did create, a program called Authentically United with Love, which really helps women to heal, reclaim their self-worth, to learn to show up in their relationship in a place of peace and clarity and emotional intelligence and alignment. So yeah, I appreciate the work I'm doing. And
Yeah.
I think women, are powerful creatures. And there's a lot to be said about what we can do as women if we really put our minds to it and get the support and the support we need.
Yeah. Well, and then the main thing here is that, if they're feeling that disconnection or unsupported, it doesn't mean that that's just the way it is,
Yeah.
right? You have created processes, and obviously there are ways to navigate out of that without
Mhm.
having everything cave in, right? Because that's
Yeah.
the fear. Like you said, change is one of the biggest challenges. Is just
Mhm.
yeah, but that uncertainty about, well,
Yeah.
if I do this, then what's going to happen? Because I'm barely holding this together, and so just that fear of everything getting kind of worse. But really, that's the opportunity to get clarity on what are some things that can be shifted so that there is more success. So, well, can you share maybe a short story about one of the women that you've worked with and what they were enduring before working with you, and then how their life changed?
So yeah, I actually worked with a woman. It was actually a couple because she was like, okay, me and my husband can come, and he agreed. So I do couples work and then I do individual woman work, but she was
Okay.
at a point where she was ready to leave the relationship. They talked about divorce, so he wasn't surprised that they had kind of talked about it and thought about it. That's why he was showing up because he was willing to try to do some of the work and come. I think the first thing we talked about is really getting them out of the mindset of like, okay, I want a divorce, and really understanding like, well, what got you guys to the point of where you guys are at now? Like, was it, the kids? Because they did have kids. That was something they talked about as well. And they were also step kids. So it was a blended family. So it was multiple things going on. They ran a business together. So it was like, okay, is the stress of running a business,
Right.
happening as well? And so, and then it was like they were living in or sleeping, I wouldn't say living, sleeping in separate rooms. And I'm like, okay, well, all of these things are really impacting the intimacy that you guys can have and the relationship that you guys had. So we started small by saying like, well, what's most comfortable for you at this point in order for you guys just to get to a positive space of trying to just connect, even if it's just on a
Mhm.
friendship mode, but not having divorce at the forefront. But how do we even get you guys to just enjoy each other's company again? Because at some point in time, that's why you guys got married, I would assume, is you guys did enjoy the company you guys had, the relationship you guys had. And so I think with giving them little different things that they can try, and then reminding them what are things you guys used to do before, and then getting them to be really intentional that you have to set dates. If you have kids, if you have businesses, like you can't just think date night's going to happen or life is going to happen.
Right.
Like sometimes you have to intentionally be together, and that doesn't mean the kids there, that doesn't mean it's business talk, that means it's you guys really taking the time to talk amongst yourself to see what that looks like, and then eventually finding a way to see how can you guys be in the same room, at night, and just have some sort of intimacy, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's touching, watching TV together, eating together, but being in more close proximity to each other so that that distance doesn't continue to build. Because I feel like once
Oh,
that distance is created, you almost get comfortable of like, we're almost roommates. I've heard it all the time. We're roommates that just kind of live together. And it's like, yeah, that's not really what we're trying to do.
right.
So for me, it's really being like what, and then for her, she also was very passionate, an entrepreneur, was trying to work on her own business. So that's also one of the things we worked on is like, well, what do you think needs to shift in your business for you to be in a better spot? Because I think also she was really frustrated and tired and burnt out and nothing was working there. So we were working on how do we get your entrepreneurship journey and your career to be where you want it to be so you're in a better, happier spot. Because when you're happier, you can even show up for your husband and be like, oh, hey, baby, how are you doing? Like your energy is more positive because you're
Mhm.
just experiencing a positive day or positive moments throughout the day in what you're
Yeah.
already doing.
Right.
So it worked really good. I mean, at the end of the day, they didn't get a divorce and we got them to a positive place where they were able to talk more, communicate more. They weren't 100% in the same room, but they were able to like spend the night in one of the rooms together. And so I
Mhm.
think just with talking and it was just a 3-month coaching session we had with them to really kind of get them to a solid space. And I think ultimately it really worked. She really appreciated it. She said she was really excited about it. And then she did want to shift to working specifically with a business coach that was going to give her business strategies. And so we just said we would take a break so she can really get her business off the
Yeah.
floor running. But I
Well,
think ultimately it really worked to sometimes have somebody from the outside coming into the relationship
oh
because
yeah.
you guys are both in a toxic space and have probably
Right.
both been hurt. And I always try to remind people, one of you guys isn't just hurt in the relationship. You guys probably both feel hurt, which is the reason why both of you guys have decided to disengage and not communicate. And both of you guys are trying to focus on outside things or your career or hold the house together or, just think about the kids. But at the end of the day,
Mm.
there's so much more to the situation. So how do we make sure that you guys are connecting and collaborating and, doing all these things to make the house go? And like at the forefront as parents, you guys are the example for the kids. And
Yeah.
when you guys are doing better, the kids are doing better. Or sometimes you guys don't even realize the impact it has on the kids. And I'm not saying, hey, stay together. If you guys are feeling that way very seriously,
Right.
you have to do what you have to do. But at the end of the day, if you just feel like you're stuck and you don't know what to do and you feel like you've tried everything, sometimes people are like, I went to therapy, it didn't work. And I'm like, okay, like let's
Yeah.
try coaching, which is a little bit different. So let's see if that works for you. And yeah, I've had very successful rates for the women that I've worked with who are really excited. I've worked with a variety of different women. And I think just at the end of the day, I think the success stories of like where they were at and where they're at now is just really exciting to me to see the journey.
Oh yeah, it's like a whole new life that you've created
Yes.
them to create for themselves.
Yes.
It's a whole new life. And that's
Yes.
so satisfying. And I hear the passion in your voice, and I'm sure that that's part of what keeps you, passionate about this work and being the mom, bonus mommy as you called it, and running,
Yeah.
juggling all these different things, because that seeing that transformation and being witness to that is what
Mhm.
is so fulfilling, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, and the
Mhm.
journey from passion to profits is challenging. And I've seen it so many times that people get on that path, but they get burnt out because it's just more than they even dreamed it was going to be like, to be able to manage
Mhm.
growing a business and fulfilling their obligation to doing the actual work of coaching and managing
Yeah.
their own life. So yeah, so I love to just hear that passion in your voice. And one of my mentors early in my career was Mark Victor Hansen. He wasn't a direct mentor, but I was in a mastermind with he and Bob Proctor. It was called the
Okay.
3% Club. And we met in person. It was way back then when, you'd meet in person, right? Can you remember those days? and and one of the things that always inspired me so much, there were so many things about him that inspired me, but one of the things that he said was, Wendy, you know, you need to have just this big, hairy, audacious goal for yourself,
Mhm.
something that is bigger than you, something that helps you to see over these little speed bumps, and keep your head up so that you're seeing the bigger picture. And
Mhm.
so ever since then, in every iteration of my journey as an entrepreneur, I've always had a big, hairy, audacious goal, something
Mhm.
that inspires me and keeps me in things in perspective, I guess is the thing.
Mhm.
And for me, it's my goal is to raise consciousness within humanity. And I
Mhm.
feel so aligned with coaches like you doing the work you're doing, because you're the ones who are, working with the couples one by one. And, by supporting you to get your word out, get your message out, facilitate attracting more clients. That is the ripple effect that's causing
Mhm.
this overall awakening, I feel,
Mhm.
in terms of what truly is possible. We don't have to continue putting up with this. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to do 110-mile-an-hour days with sacrificing everything. You really can have it all. You really
Mhm.
can have happiness, fulfillment, joy, peace,
Yeah.
relaxation in the career. You really can. And so I
Mhm.
so admire, you and the work that you're doing to contribute to that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that as part of my vision, you are part of my vision of how consciousness and humanity is awakening. So I
Thank
truly
you.
appreciate. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Dr. LaShandra. Do you have a big, hairy, audacious goal or a big vision for yourself or your business, or something that keeps your head up above the water?
Yeah, one of my five personality traits when I took the Clifton strains is I'm a maximizer. So I like to get the maximum out of people that I work with. Like, I'm going to maximize your life to the maximum. I'm going to maximize my life to the maximum. And I'm also very futuristic. So for me, I've been thinking about it for a while, and a motto that I have that I'm like, I want to live by this. And I'm like, let's create a movement for women to live by this. It's like live better in your life, which is kind of the mental health side of things, love more in your relationships, which is like the relationship side, and then thrive in your purpose. Because I do feel like what you're doing and the work that you're doing and how you're giving back or being a mother or having a career or whatever that thing is that, gives you purpose and makes you here. Like, we're all here for a purpose, I believe. I think that's what it's all about. When those all blend together beautifully, I feel like you're in this really great place of being able to not just exist, but thrive. And
Yeah.
so, live, love, and thrive is really, when you're doing it on the shorter thing, that's really what it is. And so for me, it's like a movement. Like, how could we get women to really eat, breathe, and live this? Because I almost feel like it's like, well, if you're successful, you can't have a happy relationship, or you can't be a good mom, or you can't,
Yeah.
have all these goals. Like, it's, you get one or the other. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
can't have your cake and eat it too, they say. But I'm
They
like,
say.
let's have that
Yeah.
cake, let's eat
That's
it,
one of
let's
those.
bake some more cakes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm all about that. And so for
Nice.
me, it's like, how do we create this where it's like we are living, loving, thriving in a beautiful place, and we're having the life that we want to have, that's built for us.
Yeah, amen to that. I love that. Yeah. So just tell me, what is I know we have got a lot of listeners that are probably saying, yeah, 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 that's what I want. That's what I want. So what is the best
Yeah.
next step for women who are curious about the possibility, or couples, right, who are
Yeah.
curious about the possibility of working with you? Is there a best next step for them?
Yeah, so I actually do offer a free success strategy session where we really just see where you're at in life, where you want to be, and what it's really going to take to get to that next step. So I would say, for anybody who's on the fence or who's just thinking, I want more, let me see what it's about, I would say that's a free, next step to take, just to kind of gauge where you're at and if I can support you and if we would be a good match for each other. So I'm offering that for anybody who wants to take it. Yeah, feel free to.
What's the name of that session again? So
A success strategy session. Yeah.
success strategy session. Okay, and they can
Yes.
find how to schedule that on your website.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
fantastic. Because I'm going to put the URL to your website then in the show notes. So listeners, be sure to check that out. So that is a very generous gift of your time and
Thank
expertise.
you.
And I'm sure a lot of clarity just comes out of that session, whether they decide to work together or not. But that
Yeah.
is really a generous gift that you're contributing. So thank you again, Dr. LaShandra. This has just been great. I've so enjoyed learning about your journey and really expanding our view of the type of happiness, fulfillment, meaning that is truly possible for those ambitious, driven, success-oriented women that want to have it all, but they, can't quite figure it out. So it is truly possible. So thank you again. Appreciate your time and all the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
All right. Well, the real life transformations facilitated by experts like my guest today are truly priceless. I mean, happiness, joy, peace, love, right? These are all what each of us ultimately strives for in life. But becoming a sought after and well paid coach or energy healer is often challenging, overwhelming, and frustrating. So, if you're a heart centered coach, expert, or energy healer who's striving for more ease, flow, and abundance, well, I've created a special gift just for you. So check out the show notes. All right. Well, this is Wendy Vaughn signing off. Thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure to join me for my next episode where we'll be inspired by yet another impact maker's journey.